Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So, let's have some fun. So Vanity Fair puts out this kind of, I guess it was like a New Year's Eve type thing. It was advice for Hillary Clinton. Now, this caused a bit of controversy among Hillary supporters, the most rabid of the Hillary supporters and the most hysterical of the Hillary supporters. Let's take a look at the video first and we can talk about it after. I thought it was perfectly fun. I thought it was actually pretty funny. The response, however, was that much funnier. It's
time to start working on your sequel to your book, What Happened? What the hell happened?
Get someone on your tech staff to disable autofill on your iPhone so that typing an F doesn't become Form Exploratory Committee for 2020.
You know, on Anderson Cooper, you were telling him about alternate nostril breathing. You seem really adept. You should try teaching a class.
Take more photos in the woods. How else are you going to meet unsuspecting hikers?
Take up a new hobby in the new year. Volunteer work, knitting, improv comedy, literally anything that'll keep you from running again.
To finally put away your James Comey voodoo doll. Now, we all know you think that James Comey cost you the election, and he might have, but so did a handful of other things. It's a year later, and time to move on.
So cheers to you, Hillary Clinton.
Cheers to you, Hillary.
Cheers to you, Hillary Clinton.
So, as you could expect, that didn't go over well. You had a lot of people who didn't have a sense of humor about this at all. Bitter, hysterical people who did not take kindly to Vanity Fair poking fun at Hillary Clinton in this way. So, let's take a look at some of the responses. I mean, it's only fair to hear them out, see their point. All right, I'm sorry. Let's go to Peter Dow. Peter Dow is the most hysterical of all of them. Let's take a look.
I'm not doing it.
Open it up, Fabricio.
No.
What's the matter? Hold it up. Fabricio, hold it up. Let me see your present. Fabricio, let me see your present. Alessandro, what's wrong? But you like Brave. You like the movie. It's from that movie.
Ugh. I could give the commentary of the Hillary supporters, but I think that probably does it justice. There are more. There are a ton of these, by the way. I love these. These are hilarious. But let's go to the other clips. I think, honestly, if I'm being honest, these kids were pretty tame compared to the Hillary Clinton supporters. So, let's see. This is CNN. Steadfast Clinton supporters like Peter fucking Dow, expressed their outrage over the joke, decrying the reference to knitting as sexist. A hashtag Cancel Vanity Fair spread on Twitter. Adam Percamento, a Clinton advisor, went so far as to tweet out a photo of the magazine engulfed in flames. For those that once had Hillary's back, it's time for a Vanity Fair hit. The actress, Patricia Arquette, reacted with similar anger. Hey, stop telling women what the fuck they should do or can't do, Arquette tweeted. Get over your mommy issues. Get over your mommy issues. By Wednesday night, a Vanity Fair spokesman had put out a statement saying the video was an attempt at humor and we regret that it missed the mark. No, it didn't miss the mark. That video was fucking awesome. These people just don't have any sense of humor on this. They're bitter, hysterical people, for the most part, who's angry and upset that Hillary Clinton lost the reality show host. Vanity Fair, you should not have stepped back one iota. You shouldn't have even responded to these people. They're a small percentage of the population. Let that small percentage of the population bitch and moan, just like you used to let the right wing bitch and moan. The video's hilarious. The video is hilarious. I like it. I like it a lot. And they're getting across America's sentiment. Please don't run again. The majority of the population dislikes you immensely. Your ratings, your favorability ratings have gone down, even after the election in which you failed to reality shows. A guy who, by the way, on the day that he got the job, the overwhelming majority of the country didn't even think he was qualified for the job. You may not like that Vanity Fair is poking fun at your candidate, but you can't say Vanity Fair is wrong. Take up knitting. That has nothing to do with you being a woman. That has everything to do with find something else the fuck to do other than politics. So they call Vanity Fair sexist and racist and all this other stuff for that video. All of those women in that video are supposed to be sexist, according to Peter fucking Dow, because they made a reference to knitting and all this other stuff. This stuff is insane. It becomes somewhat of a parody of itself at a certain point. Even Tom Watson, another Hillbot, these people that have this weird fanatical Hillary Clinton fascination that borders on this kind of semi-sexual and gross. I don't understand how these guys are this loyal, this committed, where they would say pretty much, they would call anything sexist. Doesn't matter what it is. A woman telling another woman, hey, take up some other hobby. If they would have said, take up, I don't know, race car driving, that wouldn't have made necessarily any sense. I mean, come on. If they're going to call that sexist, and they're going to call Bernie Sanders sexist, and they're going to call all the lefties Bernie bros, all those people are sexist also, and all of the people who didn't vote for Hillary Clinton were also sexist, then the term loses its meaning. You've essentially labeled the overwhelming majority of the population sexist because that overwhelming majority of the population dislikes your candidate. Get over it. Vanity Fair, that was fucking awesome. The only fault that I find in Vanity Fair on this is kowtowing to these people. Let them bitch and moan in the same way that those parents let those other kids bitch and moan. So I would leave it at that. They have their own group of the bitter enders. I would argue their group of the bitter enders is more embarrassing. I mean, come on. Come on. That woman failed a year ago. And you guys are still pining and angry over anything that's said about Hillary Clinton. I mean, come on. She spent her entire campaign. She had $1 billion. She could have burned that $1 billion on a White House lawn. She could have given that $1 billion to get rid of homelessness. Something. She could have used that $1 billion for some good ends. She burned it on an election, losing to reality shows, running the most tone-deaf campaign in the history of political campaigns. She may have been the strongest woman in the universe. She may be the strongest woman in the universe, but she couldn't win an election. Couldn't win any election. She lost a black man with a Muslim name and then lost to this maniac, Donald Trump, fucking reality show host. I'm sorry, your candidate was weak. I'm sorry, your candidate was weak. I understand you're still pining over her. Get over it. Vanity Fair. Tip of the hat. Good job. Good job. And yes, I'm biased on this particular thing. If they had did this thing like this on Sanders, I don't think I would have reacted with anger on the Sanders thing. I mean, I think I probably would have looked at it depending on what it was. If it was an old joke, it might have been funny. None of these jokes were spiteful or mean or anything else. It was, you lost. You wrote a book called What Happened, and we would prefer that you take up something else other than contaminating our political process once again. I agree with that sentiment. So, Vanity Fair, don't back away from that stuff when people are bitching and moaning at you about that stuff. Especially if you're not in the wrong. So, I will leave it at that. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. The sexist thing is weird to me, man. Let me say this one part. I've considered myself somewhat of a feminist. Now, I use that term because the term doesn't really mean anything. I mean, ultimately, people have their own conceptions of what that term means. From my own standpoint, I mean, I accept that other person as an individual that has equal rights, the equal rights as I have. They have just as much right to be on this particular planet, in this particular space, in this particular physical matter reality as I do. So I am not going to do anything that I'm not going to take any action, at least not intentionally, that's going to some way subvert the will of that particular other person if I don't have to take the action to subvert the will of that other person. That's what I mean by that. I accept you as a person, as a full-fledged person, in the same way that I'm a full-fledged person. You understand that many of the supporters of Sanders and people on the left, for the most part, consider it the same way. Like, you may call these people, you know, they may be somewhat boisterous, they may have this kind of quote-unquote guy talk or whatever else. I would say that's just being human beings. I would say whether you're on the right or the left, human beings talk in particular ways, particularly when those human beings are informal, talking to one another, amongst themselves. Calling each and everything that comes up sexist because you don't necessarily like the fact that it's against your candidate. You understand it completely cripples the word when you actually need to use the word. I mean, I would say Donald Trump is sexist. But you understand that you completely decapitate that process. There are situations where women are living through, well, dealing with people who are sexist. You know, with a particular boss that acts a particular way, with a family member that acts a particular way. That part gets a little bit gross. But I'm trying to make this point that interacts in a society that in some cases they are dealing with people that treat them a particular way. In reality, real sexism in this regard. Using it in this way, it just decapitates the process. It's like calling everything racist, or everything sexist, or everything homophobic, or everything. Like, at a certain point, it loses meaning. It loses any kind of strength whatsoever. Using this for political ends is somewhat disgusting. It's somewhat disgusting. You're crippling the word for people who actually need to use the word. And right-wingers usually, even now, have this thing of, well, I mean, they say that all the time. They say that all the time. And in this particular case, yeah, you guys have been using this stuff purely for political effect, completely decapitating the word. I don't like to use the term racism casually. I don't like to use the term sexism casually. I don't like to use any of these terms casually. Because there are going to be times where you actually do want to use the word and that word have a particular effect. It's like Democrats or lefties always calling everything fascism. Everything's fascism. That guy's fascist. That guy's fascist. It's like, look, all I'm saying is I understand that there's some Democrats that cling to identity so much that is the lens and that is the context to which they see the world, be it race, be it sex, be it whatever, be it gender, whatever. Just understand if you're going to use words in this way, there would be a time where you actually need to use that word. And that word will have no bearing or no effect whatsoever, particularly when it needs to have a certain amount of bite associated with it. Because you've used it consistently for things that in no way were sexist, in no way were racist, and in no way homophobic. In this very specific case, what I'm talking about is the sexist thing. Vanity Fair, come on, be honest. I'm not talking about these hillbots. I'm talking about just regular people looking at this. Do you honestly believe that Vanity Fair doing this video was in any way sexist? And do you honestly believe that Vanity Fair was saying this in a serious way? Yes, it was somewhat half joking. But do you honestly believe that this was done out of spite or malice or anything else? Particularly to get the reaction from these hillbots where she's putting in capital letters, stop telling women what the fuck they should do or can do. As if this purely has anything to do with Hillary Clinton's gender. All I'm saying is you're hurting your cause if that's actually a cause. I suspect it's not your cause. I suspect all of this is just politics to these people. And just like the right wing, they just use this stuff for political effect. There's no reality to it, which is why they throw it out that way. It's chum for the audience, per se, if that makes sense. They throw this out wielding, hoping somebody on that particular spectrum would cling on to that particular thing. It doesn't have to have reality to it. The confirmation bias of the individual in the audience looking at it makes that particular reality true. Meaning you're going to get a section of the public who says, yes, that this is sexist. No reality to it, but they infuse it with a certain amount of reality to it. That's why they throw this stuff out. I'm just saying, in the real world things, where there are real people actually being adversely affected by sexism or racism or homophobia or whatever, this hurts their cause. This hurts your cause. That's all I'm saying. I will leave it at that. This kind of got long. I got muddled in something towards the end. But I hope I made sense. Alright guys, I'll leave it at that. If you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks guys.